So I'm Ashley Bivin. I am the chair of the Alaska EMP chapter, and I'm also the curator at the American Bald Eagle Foundation. I'm going to throw a link to the slides that I'm going to use today in the chat for anyone who needs them. And I'm going to go start screen sharing. Awesome. So this is collection photography for small museums. And I am presenting this on the home of the Klingit people. I wanted to first start off giving a huge thanks to Dixie and Museums Alaska. They really supported us this last year and a half when I brought this crazy idea of getting this back up and running and doing some meetings and webinars. So who am I? Like I said a few minutes ago, I am the chair of the Alaska EMP chapter, and I'm curator here at the American Bald Eagle Foundation. This picture is not from where I work now. This is just a fun picture of me at a children's museum I used to work at with cousin It that I made for a display for Halloween. So why did I want to get into collection photography for this kickoff series of our summer SkillShare? So I wanted a cradle to grave introduction for EMPs, interns, and volunteers, and a refresher for experienced museum professionals to help create consistency with photos in our collection management systems and our backups, to kind of explain the simple tools you need, because you actually don't need a lot to get great photos, how to store our photos at the end. And I just want to note like a few things that I'm not going to go over, but I do know a resource for lighting, color correction, photo type. Connecting to Collections Care has a basic collection photography webinar that's free to everyone. And that would be a great next step after we're done here today. And the link is here below, and I can pull that off for you guys later. So what are the purposes for collections photography? So we use it for research, publication, social media, exhibit development, and collection documentation. As a curator, my heart and soul is in collections management. A big focus on today is that collection documentation portion. We're looking for ways to see how our collection changes over time. And one of the best ways to do that is in the photography. So what do you need? A camera. You can be a point and shoot. A lot of people like the flip screens, and I have a example of that here. That helps if you're taking a picture above the object. That flip screen can kind of get you oriented if you need it. But a phone or a larger DSL camera, professional, whatever you have accessible to take the photos is all you need. And then the next thing is a safe, well-lit place to take photos. This is a level table. If the object is oversized, it can be, it can be on the ground. And if available, having something underneath it to help protect the object. And the last thing is our skills, object handling skills, and being able to care for that object while we're taking photos of it is very important. So optional, while these are all highly encouraged, they are not required to get these photos. Backdrops, a lot of museums will go with white and gray or white and black. But I've also used a navy blue before, and I personally like light gray and navy blue. They tend to not have some of the stark differences that can be harsh on the eyes. Photography lights with diffusers or boxes. This just helps create a smoother light, and it helps correct your shadows. Color correction cards. I've never personally used these because I've always worked in smaller museums, but I know sometimes the Smithsonian uses them just to be able to tell the colors in the photograph. Some people also still use measuring tools in their photographs, whether it's a measuring bar or measuring tape. This can indicate size. I don't find it helpful personally because it can't directly see the measurements, but this can be helpful just to determine if your photographs get mixed up, which object is which. Risers and weights, this can help balance an object if you need it. A tripod for the camera, and items to move the object. You can use a cart, or if you need to have a sling or whatever you need just to move that object safely. So when are you going to take photographs? When you're handling the object, ideally, we're not pulling the object out just for photography, though it can happen sometimes, especially if you're doing like a research project. But these times are, when you're acquiring, accessioning an object, loans, receiving and returning, inventory and updating records, moving objects on or off exhibit, cleaning and care routines, and then whenever accidents happen. So the first step here is to set up your space. So establish where you're taking photos first and make sure you know a safe route to get the objects there. So if you're doing something in situ, there might be a variety of reasons for this. If the object's on exhibit, it may be more ideal just to leave it there, depending on how complicated it would be to get out of the exhibit. If it's fragile, religious and cultural reasons, maybe you're not the correct person to handle it. And so leaving it in place just to catch those quick condition details is fine. And then if it's oversized, no one expects to move a grand piano every time we need to do an inventory and just to check condition. So on a table or on an exhibit case, I have taken many pictures on an exhibit case in a historical society building or historic home. So if you can, lay down your foam or your cloth that you're going to set the object on, have a backdrop set up, and get your lights if available. And so here's some in situ pictures. You can see that we have a variety of great photos. This guy was taken years ago here at the American World Legal Foundation, and I can't even tell you by who. It was just in our collection, in our Past Perfect system. And you can see this is very blurry. This would not be the best time to take an in situ photo. You're going to take this object out of the case. But you can see our the totem pole here and our muskrat friend. These are pretty decent photos. They're in situ. We don't want to move these guys because they're on exhibit, but we're able to get pretty good detail on both of them and see the condition that they're in. Here's it on a table. So with the table, you just want to make sure you're not having a bunch of contrasting colors. Here is a lynx on the right where you can see our measuring tool. And he is pretty decent. We have the plain background, but the bear skull, you can see that there's two different backdrops, basically with the table and the wall. And we're just looking for not having those huge contrast if we're on the table. And here's our setup. We don't have regular backdrops. We have cloth backdrops, and they're hung up with thumbtacks because that's what we have available currently. We're hoping to get a better system, but this is what we have for now. But it's just on a regular table. We have some foam down, and then our backdrops just hang down after being pinned up. So then after you get your stuff set up, you're going to move the object again. This is just making sure that your clothes are correct, knowing your route, your PPE if needed, and then your items you need to carry it, carts, blankets, foam, weights, whatever you need to keep that object safe. Knowing what weak points you have, or if you have any protruding points, and then locating where it can be handled or supported correctly. All right, so now we're to taking the photos. Always take more photos than you need. Any professional photographer will tell you when they do a wedding or any type of event, they take thousands of photos. While you don't need to do that here, take as many as you need. You can always call the photos later, which we'll talk about. But for your collection management system, you're looking for 5 to 10 photos minimum to have a decent look at what's going on with that object. We personally have Past Perfect, and they'll let us put up to 999 photos in it, which is slightly excessive, but maybe you need that for some odd reason. You could be dealing with a tapestry that has a lot of different fabrics, and maybe you need to take a picture of every fabric to be able to determine what its life is going on, because those will change over time with silk or cotton. If those, I don't know why those would be together, but they could be. And then when you're done and you're uploading the photos, you'll have them on your computer, and you'll have them backed up somewhere. And you can always have additional photos that you don't put in your collection management system here. These are going to be high quality photos you can use for documentation, research, or social media. When I was an intern, this checklist was verbally translated to me, and I wrote it down because it helped me personally. But this is to make sure that I get as much documentation as possible. And so I use this checklist every time I take photos. I start off taking a profile picture. This picture gives as much detail as possible. Then do the front, back, and sides, the top, the bottom if safe to do so. Then I do any detail I want to document and any damage I want to document. And here's some examples of that. So like this is a profile picture. It's kind of angled to where we get to see a little bit of the front, a little bit of the side. And it just gives us a good like overall picture of what's going on. And we have two here, one for documentation purposes, and then one that we're going to be using for like social media or something where we needed to have a name inside it. So our front and back, you can see that the detail is different. Our sides on our top, and then our details and damage, because this object is has a base, it's not safe to do the bottom, and so we did not take pictures of it. But you can see like here, I took, a picture of the base of the skull to get the detail there, and then there's some damage on the tooth. This is probably done in life, but we just want to have the documentation that we know that this tooth has something going on with it. So at the end, we're going to upload our photos and call them. So culling is the act of going through and removing photos that you don't need. This is to reduce and control the size of your photographs. You're going to know what you have in it. You're going to be able to delete any blurry or to frame shots. We all have had that moment where someone comes in to ask us a question. You go to do something and it's just a picture, whether it's for our personal lives or work. Sometimes photos come out blurry and we want to take those out. You'll be able to have a manageable size of photos, and you'll get a chance to organize them. So then we get up into naming. So how I do it is I make a folder and then put the object ID and name on it. Sometimes I do subfolders. These aren't required. This just helps me if I'm going to use it for something different other than collection documentation. And then I name the photos. So I always use the object ID and then say what it's of. So like top of item, left side, right side, damage. I also put an example here, skull interp. I recently did a skull interpretation, and I wanted to document that I had that photo ready for it. Any questions?
None. That was all really great, Ashley.
Yeah, I did. I asked my interns yesterday if they had any questions. They're like, or if I needed to change anything. They're like, no, we were able to understand exactly what you wanted us to do from this presentation. I'm like, great. I'm glad that's what this is for. So some sources. Again, additional thanks to my interns. They help me edit, and they are the subject of most of the photos. And then we'll have our future SkillShares on August 5th and September 2nd.